And welcome to the 941 Studio Tour, or better known as the Center for the Musically Challenged. That's me. And when you walk in, first thing you see is a set of drums. Something that I still do quite a bit. I still play almost every day. And recently I refinished these. They were a really nasty looking white color. And I refinished them to yellow, replaced the heads, and the set's about, it's actually my first drum set that I still have. It's about 20 years old or so, and replacing all of the skins and everything really brought it back to life, so I'm glad to be still playing after all this time. I also have a set of timbales, caliente timbales, that I practice on quite often, and a set of bongos over here that really don't ever get used. And all behind there is pretty much my CD collection, a lot of sample CDs, pretty big library, and behind that is my car collection, I wish. Anyway, so I keep a lot of the records here, many of the DJ records, manuals for all the equipment, and all that great stuff. And looking off to the right, here we have Max, which is our studio dog. And in front of Max is another shelf full of records. And the interesting thing about this particular shelf full of records and this bottom half right here is that they are all very rare, very hard to find a cappella records. It's not the kind of stuff you find on Kazaa or Soulseek. Many of these are very rare. They've been found in bins underneath old record store displays and things like that. They're pretty rare, so that's where we get a lot of our sample material from. Over here is our new video workstation. This is a new addition to the studio here. So do a lot of like the video you see right here with for the web. A lot of the video you'll see streaming from our site is done on this particular computer. Got one turntable here. It's my first turntable. I don't mix much at home, but I use it primarily for sampling for the music computer. And this being the music computer. It's I think a 2.2 or 2.3 gigahertz P4. We've got dual 19-inch monitors, and over here is the infamous Hansonic unit that a lot of people will recognize from my shows. I tend to take that with me everywhere. It's an old MC505. Doesn't get a whole lot of use anymore. And on this side over here we've got the Jomox, which also doesn't get a lot of use anymore, but I really don't want to sell it. It's pretty much a collectible for me, at least, because a lot of the old tracks, bass drums, came from that particular Jomox. Down here we've got another rack full of things. It's kind of hard to see with the Hansonic in place, but what you'll see is one of the Electrics effects. That is the delay unit. And over here you'll see two more of the Electrics effects. And they've since discontinued these particular models, and when I knew that they were getting rid of them, I stocked up as much as possible. So I've got two of the delays, and I've got one of the Filter Factory, and down here I've got one of the vocoders. And right above the vocoder you'll see we've got two eMagic MIDI ports. They're both 16 port MIDI ports. I'm sorry, 8 in, 8 out MIDI ports, and it makes for a total of 16 in and out ports. It's got a drum station, an Ovation, I'm sorry. Down here we have a Electrics vocoder, and above that we have two of the eMagic MIDI port units. They are 16 MIDI ports, 8 channels each, Above that is a Novation drum station. We've got a Nord Rack 2, an EMU Extreme Lead, a Korg ER1 drum machine. Above that's an ESI 4000, of course the Electrics effects, and we got one of the Roland JV synths. I think that's a 1080. And below that is a very interesting little unit. That is a German-made vocoder. You don't see these too much. It's totally analog. Very good sounding unit. And over here, what we have is the keyboard rack. And the keyboard rack primarily consists of a Triton, got a JP8000 Roland, and a Roland Juno 1, which is the original Hoover machine. So that's where all the Hoovers come from. And that's where they did come from back in the early 90s when you heard a lot of the old Prodigy stuff. They were using one of those to generate those sounds. Underneath there we've got a Virus B, which I think is probably the most useful thing around here, other than the computer. And that's pretty much the equipment. Over here we've got, of course, software. A lot of people ask what we use software-wise. And Logic is my main sequencer. I know it pretty well. eMagic was recently bought out by Apple, so they have discontinued their product support and future product releases for the PC. So I'm sticking with it for now until there's a time or a need to have to switch. Some of the other things, of course, we've got the software sampler, the eMagic software sampler, Sound Diver, Ableton Live. Yes, I actually buy software. So we've got Time Factory. It's a good standalone time stretching unit. The LM4 drum machine for VST. And over here, which I'll go over to. Oh yeah, by the way, we also have a studio cat. Just hangs out, keeps me company, because it gets pretty lonely around here. Anyway, and this is our vocal booth that we built for Africa Bambaataa when he was here. A fairly low-tech solution to a vocal booth. It's pretty much just covered in styrofoam inside, and our main concern was to eliminate the high frequency bleeding from outside of the vocal booth, and we were pretty successful in eliminating most of the frequencies bleeding into the booth when it's closed. So that's our low-tech solution to a vocal booth. It was fairly cheap to build. About I don't know. I think it was like about $300 total to build it. Had an old piece of glass laying around from an old shelving unit, so we just shoved that in there as a window. And that's about it. This is pretty much the studio. And if anybody wonders why I never leave the house, this is pretty much the reason. So who'd want to leave here if they had all this great stuff to hang out and play with? Anyway, well, I appreciate everybody checking it out, and I will see you guys out during my gigs this year. So stop and say hello.